The sea always carried a kind of quiet that Elen couldn't find anywhere else. It was the end of October, the winds heavier, the air salted and sharp, and the evenings came far too quickly. Her small coastal house, modest, warm, and filled with faint scents of lavender she kept in bowls on the shelves, sat close enough to the shoreline that she could hear the crash of waves every night as she lay in bed. But this autumn, the sound was different. It wasn't just waves anymore. It was grief, filling the air, filling the silences, and pressing in on both her and Eva. Eva had moved in 2 weeks after the funeral. At first, it wasn't even a decision. There had been no sit-down, no plan made with words. Elen had noticed Eva forgetting things, keys left in the car, the stove burner left on, laundry still wet in the machine for days. She was hollowed out by the loss, as if she were only half here, moving through the days on memory and habit. Elen couldn't stand to see her like that, not in the big empty house where she had lived with her brother. So one evening, after Eva had fallen asleep on her couch again, her coat still on, shoes by the door, an untouched mug of tea cold on the table, Elen had pulled a blanket over her, sat in the armchair opposite, and simply decided she shouldn't be alone. The next morning, Elen asked softly, "Why don't you stay here for a while? Just until you feel like going back." Eva had only nodded, eyes red-rimmed, her voice caught in her throat. And that was how it began. The first weeks were silent. They lit like shadows moving around each other. Elen would make tea in the mornings, leaving Eva's cup on the table without a word. Sometimes Eva would drink it, sometimes not. In the evenings, Elen cooked small, simple meals, soup, bread, roasted vegetables, and Eva would eat only a little, though she always looked grateful in her quiet way. Grief had changed Eva. She had once been the spark in every gathering. Elen remembered dinners when her brother and Eva still lived happily. Eva's laugh had filled the room, her green eyes alive with mischief, her hands always moving as she told stories. But now that light was dimmed. Her blonde hair, usually brushed neatly, often hung loose and unkempt. Her jaw, once strong with smiles, seemed sharpened by sorrow. Elen never forced conversation. Instead, she filled the silence with small gestures, folding Eva's laundry without being asked, tucking the blanket tighter around her shoulders when she fell asleep on the couch, leaving candles lit in the evening so the rooms didn't feel so empty. And slowly, almost invisibly, something began to change. One night, Eva came into the kitchen while Elen was drying dishes. She leaned against the counter, arms crossed, watching. It was the first time she had spoken more than a handful of words all day. "You always keep this place so warm," Eva murmured. Elen glanced at her. "I like it that way. Doesn't feel so lonely." Something flickered in Eva's eyes, agreement, maybe, or recognition. She pushed off the counter, came closer, and took the towel gently from Elen's hands. Their fingers brushed, just for a second, but it sent something sharp and soft racing through Elen's chest. "I'll finish," Eva whispered. Elen let her. That night, as Elen lay in bed listening to the waves, she realized she was holding her breath, because for the first time since her brother's death, she had seen a glimpse of Eva again. Not the widow, not just the grieving woman, but Eva. Days turned into weeks. They began to fall into a rhythm, not forced, not spoken, but natural. Eva would wake later than Elen, padding into the kitchen with sleepy eyes while Elen poured her tea. Sometimes she even teased her, softly, the way she used to. "You'll drown yourself in tea one day," Eva said once, lips curving slightly. Elen had smiled, hiding the warmth the words stirred in her. Little domestic intimacies crept into their lives. Elen brushed Eva's hair one morning when it had tangled badly, her fingers working carefully through the strands. Eva closed her eyes, letting out a breath that trembled at the edges. Neither spoke of it. On colder nights, they sat together on the couch, a blanket thrown over both of them. At first, Eva sat apart, but slowly, without either of them acknowledging it, she began leaning closer. One evening, her head rested lightly against Elen's shoulder. Elen stayed perfectly still, afraid to break the fragile moment, though inside her chest ached with something unnamed. The air between them grew charged. Not loud, not obvious, but in small ways. When Elen handed Eva a cup of tea, her fingers brushed Eva's hand a little longer than necessary. When Eva reached past Elen to grab a book, her shoulder lingered against Elen's arm. And when their eyes met across the dinner table, the silence carried something heavy, something unspoken, that neither of them dared name. Still, Elen reminded herself, she's grieving. She's my brother's wife. She needs care, not confusion. But when Eva laughed one evening, really laughed, bright and sudden, the sound filling the house like sunlight, Elen found herself staring, her heart stumbling in her chest, and in that moment, she realized, caring for Eva had become something else. Something deeper. Something she couldn't turn away from. The November winds grew sharper, and with them came a strange clarity inside the house. The quiet they had once carried like a weight began to change shape. It wasn't gone, not completely, but it softened, becoming less like an absence and more like a pause, waiting, listening, ready for something new. Elen noticed it first in the way Eva began helping with the small things. She started cooking beside her, chopping vegetables with a slow steadiness, sometimes humming under her breath. She folded laundry before Elen could reach it. She even opened the windows in the afternoons, letting the sea breeze chase away the stillness that had clung to the room since her brother's death. One evening, Eva set the table while Elen stirred soup on the stove. The candles flickered between them, throwing soft gold against Eva's face. For the first time, Elen thought she saw her not as a widow in mourning, but as a woman, vivid and alive, her blonde hair catching light, her green eyes watching Elen with something unreadable. "You always make this feel safe," Eva said suddenly, almost too quietly. Elen looked at her. "That's all I want for you." Their eyes held. The air between them thickened, unspoken, trembling. Then Eva glanced away, her jaw tightening, as though she had said too much. Later that night, Elen lay awake replaying the moment, her body restless, her heart aching with the awareness of how deeply she wanted Eva to stay, not just in her house, but in her life, her arms, her everything. Winter arrived. The sea grew darker, wilder, and the nights long. Inside, though, warmth gathered. On a stormy evening, thunder rolling in the distance, Eva curled on the couch under the shared blanket. Elen sat beside her, reading quietly, when Eva suddenly whispered, "I don't know who I am without him." The words cracked through Elen's heart. She closed her book, reaching to brush Eva's hair gently behind her ear. The touch lingered, longer than it should have, her thumb grazing Eva's temple. "You're still you," Elen murmured. "And you're stronger than you think." Eva turned her head slightly, her cheek pressing against Elen's hand. The intimacy of it left Elen breathless. Their eyes met, green and brown, grief and yearning, and for a heartbeat, it felt like the world had narrowed to that single touch. But then Eva pulled back, her hands folding tightly in her lap. "I can't," she started, but her voice faltered. Elen didn't press. She only whispered, "It's okay," and opened the book again, though the words blurred before her eyes. That night, Eva slipped into Elen's bed during the storm, not for romance, not yet, but for comfort. She lay beside her, trembling with unshed tears. Elen held her close, breathing against her hair, listening to the thunder and the waves and the uneven rhythm of Eva's heart. In the dark, something had shifted. By December, their closeness had deepened into something unspoken but undeniable. They moved like two halves of a rhythm, anticipating each other's needs. Elen poured tea just as Eva came into the kitchen. Eva fetched Elen's scarf before she asked. They laughed more now, softly, like small sparks in the gloom of winter. But beneath the laughter was heat. One night, while decorating the small pine tree Elen had brought home, their hands touched over the same ornament. Neither pulled away. Instead, their fingers tangled, held, lingered. The silence stretched, charged, until Eva finally set the ornament down and whispered, "You make me feel alive again." Elen's chest tightened. She wanted to kiss her then, desperately, but she only squeezed Eva's hand and whispered back, "Then let me keep doing that." Another night, Eva fell asleep with her head on Elen's lap, the fire casting shadows over her peaceful face. Elen stroked her hair gently, her fingers trailing over soft strands, memorizing every line of her. It was tender, achingly intimate, and Elen knew in that moment, she was hopelessly, irreversibly in love, but with love came guilt. She was my brother's wife. The thought gnawed at her, even as her heart leaned closer. And Eva's grief still lingered like a shadow. Would love heal her, or would it break her again? The answer came slowly, in moments. A brush of hands while baking cookies. A laugh that turned into a silence heavy with desire. A late-night conversation where Eva confessed, "I don't want to leave this house. I don't want to leave you." And then, one evening by the window as snow fell, Eva touched Elen's cheek. Her thumb grazed her skin, trembling but steady. "Elen," she whispered, "I keep fighting this feeling, but it's there. It's always there when I'm with you." Elen's breath caught. "I feel it too." Their foreheads leaned together, breath mingling, hearts racing. For a long, suspended moment, they hovered on the edge of something inevitable. Then Eva closed the space, pressing her lips softly against Elen's. The kiss was fragile, trembling with grief and longing, but it burned through Elen like fire. She cupped Eva's face, deepening it slightly, though careful, always careful, not to rush. When they pulled apart, both were breathless, eyes shining. The days after the kiss were both tender and uncertain. They moved carefully, still grieving, still learning. Sometimes Eva would retreat, afraid of her own feelings. Sometimes Elen would keep distance, afraid of hurting her. But always, they found their way back to each other. Their intimacy grew not in grand declarations, but in the quiet, cooking side by side, holding hands during storms, brushing snow from each other's coats, whispering goodnight a little closer each time. One night in January, Eva whispered into the dark, "Do you ever think he would hate us for this?" Elen tightened her arms around her. "He loved us both. He would want us to survive. To live." Tears filled Eva's eyes. "You make me feel like living again." And Elen kissed her, longer, deeper this time, still safe, still tender, but full of promise. By spring, the grief had softened into memory. They still lit a candle for him on quiet evenings, still spoke his name with love. But their house by the sea was no longer hollow. It was filled, with warmth, with laughter, with the sound of two women choosing each other, day after day. On a morning bright with gulls and sunlight, Eva brushed Elen's hair back and whispered, "I love you." Elen's heart broke open, healed all at once. "I love you too." And in the hum of waves, in the scent of salt and spring, they finally allowed themselves the truth. Love had found them again, not in spite of loss, but because of it. Together, they had turned grief into something else, something eternal.